The shuttle vibrated softly as it descended through the atmosphere of Zenth Prime, a world that Ethan Carter had only read about in cultural studies. Even the most vivid descriptions couldn't have prepared him for what awaited outside the window. A sea of glowing vegetation stretched to the horizon, illuminated by the planet's twin suns. Hovering above the landscape were the famed floating islands, each covered in bioluminescent flora that pulsed in waves of color. Approaching destination, Zenth University, the shuttle's AI announced. Ethan adjusted his jacket and glanced at his reflection in the polished window. Brown hair slightly tousled, green eyes wide with a mixture of nerves and excitement. At 24, he was humanity's first exchange student to attend Zenth University, and he felt the weight of the responsibility. "You're representing Earth," his mother had told him before he left. "Make us proud, Ethan." As the shuttle touched down on a gleaming platform, Ethan grabbed his bag, his palms slightly sweaty. The ramp extended, revealing a bustling landing zone filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Zentharians were the majority, their tall, lithe frames glowing softly under the sunlight. Their skin came in various translucent hues, blues, violets, and greens, each shifting subtly with their emotions. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped into the crowd. "Ethan Carter?" The voice was melodic yet firm, cutting through the noise of the bustling port. Ethan turned to see her, Lera. Her translucent skin shimmered faintly, a pale blue hue with flickers of silver. Her almond-shaped eyes regarded him with a mix of curiosity and faint amusement. "That's me," Ethan said, offering a hand instinctively. Lera tilted her head, her expression unreadable, before she extended her own hand in mimicry. Her touch was warm, almost electric, and her glow brightened slightly. "Humans greet with physical contact?" she asked, her voice lilting with curiosity. "Yeah, it's called a handshake," Ethan explained. "How primitive," she said, though her faint smile took the edge off the comment. "Follow me. I'll show you to our quarters. Try not to stare too much at anyone, though. Prolonged eye contact during mating season can be misinterpreted." "Mating season?" Ethan asked, nearly tripping as he hurried to keep up with her long strides. Lera's glow flickered, a sign of amusement he'd later learned to recognize. "Yes, mating season. It's a time of heightened emotions and interactions. You'll see." Ethan frowned, adjusting the strap of his bag. "Is this something I should be worried about?" "Only if you're foolish," Lera said over her shoulder. "Don't worry. I'll make sure you don't embarrass yourself too much." The campus was stunning, a blend of organic architecture and advanced technology. Buildings seemed to grow from the ground itself, their surfaces alive with a soft luminescence. Bridges spanned between floating islands, and students traveled on hover platforms or glided gracefully through the air. Lera led him through a series of walkways until they reached their shared quarters, a spacious suite designed for two. The walls pulsed gently, shifting colors in response to their movements. Ethan dropped his bag near the door and let out a low whistle. "This place is incredible," he said, running a hand over the smooth, glowing surface of a wall. Lera watched him with an amused expression. "It responds to emotional stimuli. Try not to let your awe overwhelm the system." Ethan laughed, turning to her. "So, you're my roommate, huh? Is that normal here?" "It's rare for students to share quarters, but you're an anomaly," Lera said, crossing her arms. "The administration thought it would be wise for you to have someone guide you through Zentharian customs." "Lucky me," Ethan said with a grin. Lera's glow brightened faintly. "We'll see how lucky you are once mating season begins in earnest." Later that evening, Lera prepared a meal of Zentharian delicacies, plates of glowing fruits and fragrant, steamed plants. Ethan poked at the vibrant food, hesitant. "Is it safe for humans?" he asked. "It won't kill you," Lera replied, her glow flickering with amusement. "Though I suppose your taste buds might not survive the experience." Ethan took a cautious bite and blinked in surprise. "Wow, that's really good." Lera tilted her head, her glow softening. "You're full of surprises, human." They ate in companionable silence for a while before Lera leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "Why did you agree to this exchange program?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. I wanted to experience something new. Humanity's been looking to connect with other civilizations for centuries. This felt like a way to help bridge the gap. Lera studied him for a moment before nodding. A noble goal. Let's hope you don't regret it. As the evening deepened, Lera stood and stretched, her bioluminescence dimming to a soft glow. Rest well, Ethan. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to Zenth University properly. And maybe if you're brave, I'll take you to the Skyfall party. Skyfall party? Ethan asked, intrigued. It's the highlight of mating season, Lera said, her smile teasing. Exclusive, wild, and very enlightening. But you might not be ready for it. Ethan grinned. Try me. Lera's glow brightened again, and she inclined her head. We'll see. As she disappeared into her room, Ethan sat back, letting the events of the day wash over him. Zenth Prime was nothing like Earth, but for the first time, he felt a spark of excitement instead of anxiety. Tomorrow promised to be even more intriguing. Ethan woke to the gentle hum of Zenth University's living quarters. The walls, which had glowed a soft blue as he drifted off, were now a warm amber, responding to the morning light filtering through the translucent windows. Rubbing his eyes, he sat up and stretched, taking a moment to marvel again at the alien beauty surrounding him. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime at the door. Before he could respond, it slid open, and Lera stepped in, her bioluminescent skin faintly glowing in the early light. Humans don't rise with the first light? She teased, folding her arms. Ethan groaned, running a hand through his messy hair. Good morning to you too. Do Zentharians make a habit of barging into each other's rooms? Lera smirked. It's not barging if the door isn't locked. Besides, I wanted to ensure you weren't still in some kind of Earth hibernation state. Well, mission accomplished, Ethan said, throwing off the covers. What's on the agenda today? Lera's glow brightened slightly, a sign of excitement. Orientation first. You'll meet the other exchange students, though none are human. After that, I thought I'd introduce you to something more stimulating. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried about that last part? Not at all, she replied, her voice laced with amusement, unless you're afraid of meeting new people. The orientation hall was a kaleidoscope of activity. Ethan found himself in a room filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some were small and insect-like, skittering across the polished floor. Others were towering and reptilian, their scales shimmering like gemstones. He tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to marvel at the sheer diversity. A Zentharian official stepped forward, their glow a commanding gold. Welcome, students of the galaxy, to Zenth University. Here you will not only learn, but also grow through the exchange of cultures and experiences. Each of you brings something unique to this collective tapestry. Embrace it. As the speech continued, Ethan felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning, he saw Lera, her expression amused. You're staring again, she whispered. Can you blame me? Ethan whispered back. This is incredible. Lera's gaze softened. It is, but you'll adjust. Come, there's something else I want to show you. Later that evening, Lera led Ethan through a winding path to an open-air plaza overlooking the glowing forests of Zenth. The bioluminescent plants swayed gently in the breeze, casting shifting patterns of light across the space. This, Lera said, gesturing to the view, is where the Skyfall party happens tomorrow night. Ethan leaned against the railing, taking it all in. Looks peaceful. Hard to imagine a party here. Lera laughed, a soft, melodic sound. It won't be peaceful for long. During mating season, this place becomes alive. Music, dancing, connections. It's unlike anything you've seen before. So why are you showing me now? Ethan asked, turning to her. Lera hesitated, her glow dimming slightly. Because tomorrow it will be overwhelming. I wanted you to see it like this first, to understand why it's important to us. Ethan nodded, touched by her thoughtfulness. Thanks, Lera. I appreciate it. She smiled, stepping closer. Will you come tomorrow? I'd like you to see the real Zenth. Are you kidding? Of course, Ethan said with a grin. Lera's glow brightened, and for a moment they stood in comfortable silence, the alien landscape stretching out before them. Just try not to embarrass yourself, she said finally, her tone teasing. Ethan laughed. No promises. The air buzzed with energy as Ethan followed Lera toward the plaza. The soft amber light of Zenthra's twin moons bathed the scene, casting long shadows across the pathways. From a distance, Ethan could already hear the faint pulse of music, a rhythmic blend of harmonies and vibrations that seemed to resonate within his chest. As they approached, the glowing forest surrounding the plaza came alive with bursts of color, the bioluminescent plants reacting to the music and the emotions of the crowd. Hovering above the open-air venue were orbs of light, shifting through hues of red, gold, and violet, casting a dreamlike glow over the scene. This is amazing, Ethan said, stopping to take it all in. Lera turned to him, her silver glow bright against the vibrant backdrop. This is just the beginning. By the time the Skyfall begins, the entire area will be alive. What exactly is the Skyfall? Ethan asked as they stepped into the plaza. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it, Lera replied, her expression softening. You'll understand soon enough. The plaza was packed with Zentharians and other alien species, their glowing forms shifting and moving in harmony with the music. Ethan felt a little out of place in his Earth clothes, surrounded by beings whose attire seemed to shimmer and flow like liquid light. You're stiff, Lera teased, nudging him gently. Relax. Let yourself feel the rhythm. I'm trying, Ethan said with a sheepish grin. Humans don't really do glowing parties in the forest. Lera laughed, the sound blending with the music. Well, tonight you're not just a human. You're part of this. She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the dance floor. The music seemed to seep into Ethan's bones as he followed Lera's lead. She moved with effortless grace, her bioluminescence pulsing in time with the beat. Ethan tried his best to mimic her movements, and though he stumbled at first, Lera's laughter and encouragement helped him relax. You're getting it, she said, her glow brightening. Not bad for a human, huh? Ethan replied, grinning. Not bad at all, Lera admitted, her eyes meeting his for a moment longer than necessary. The energy in the plaza intensified as the music built to a crescendo. Above them, the orbs of light began to descend slowly, creating an illusion of stars falling from the sky. Ethan paused, mesmerized by the sight. This is the Skyfall, Lera said softly, stepping closer. It symbolizes connection, the merging of light, energy, and life. Ethan turned to her, his voice quiet. It's beautiful. It is, Lera agreed, her glow softening. And it's different for everyone. Some see it as a celebration, others as something more personal. Ethan caught the subtle shift in her tone and hesitated. What about you? What does it mean to you? Lera's glow flickered, a sign of uncertainty. I used to think it was just a tradition, something we did because it was expected. But now, she looked at him, her expression open and vulnerable. Now I'm not so sure. Before Ethan could respond, a nearby Zentharian called out to Lera, waving her over. She hesitated, her gaze lingering on Ethan. Stay here, I'll be back, she said before disappearing into the crowd. Ethan stood alone for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds around him. He couldn't help but notice how the Zentharians moved in perfect sync with each other, their glows merging and separating in fluid patterns. It was mesmerizing and a little intimidating. Enjoying yourself, human? Ethan turned to see a tall Zentharian male with a sharp violet glow. His tone was friendly, but there was an edge to his words. Yeah, it's incredible, Ethan replied cautiously. The Zentharian smiled faintly. Good, just remember, mating season is a time of connection, but also of boundaries. Be careful where your eyes linger. The warning was clear, and Ethan nodded. Understood. As the Zentharian moved on, Ethan spotted Lera returning, her glow brighter than before. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, she said, smiling. Come. There's something I want to show you. She led him to the edge of the plaza, where the glowing forest met the cliffs overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking, the lights of the party blending with the natural beauty of Zenthra's landscape. This is my favorite spot, Lera said, her voice soft. It's quiet, away from the chaos. Ethan nodded, his gaze shifting from the view to her. It's incredible. Thanks for bringing me here. Lysara turned to him, her glow flickering. Ethan, do you ever feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself? Like you were meant to be somewhere, with someone, at a specific moment? Ethan's chest tightened at her words. Yeah, I think I'm starting to. They stood in silence, the skyfall continuing behind them, as the connection between them deepened in a way neither had expected. The Skyfall party was still in full swing as Ethan and Lysara lingered by the cliffs. The distant music resonated through the air, blending with the natural hum of Zenthra's environment. Lysara's glow softened, her presence close enough for Ethan to feel the faint warmth radiating from her. It's strange, she said, her voice quiet but clear over the distant rhythm. I've been to a dozen Skyfall celebrations, but this is the first one that feels different. Ethan tilted his head, curiosity piqued. Different how? Lysara glanced at him, her silver light shimmering faintly. I feel connected. Like this isn't just about tradition or celebration anymore. It feels personal. Ethan's pulse quickened at her words. He hesitated before replying, his voice careful. Maybe it's because you brought me here. Maybe it's because we're figuring this out together. Her glow brightened slightly, a sign of vulnerability. Do humans always say exactly what they're thinking? Not always, Ethan admitted, offering a lopsided smile. But I figure I should be honest with someone who saved me from countless cultural missteps. Lysara laughed softly, the sound like a melody carried on the breeze. You're not as lost as you think, Ethan Carter. In some ways, you understand more than most. For a moment, they stood in silence, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Lysara took a step back, her glow stabilizing. We should return, she said, though her tone was reluctant. Ethan nodded. Yeah, but thanks for showing me this. It means a lot. The following days were a whirlwind of classes and cultural exchanges. Ethan found himself immersed in Zentherian philosophy, art, and history. Lysara was always close by, offering explanations and guiding him through the intricacies of her world. During one particularly quiet afternoon, Ethan joined Lysara in one of the university's lush gardens. She was seated on a floating bench, sketching the surrounding flora with a glowing stylus. You're an artist too? Ethan asked, sitting beside her. Lysara shrugged, her glow dimming modestly. It's more of a hobby, helps me focus. He leaned closer to examine the sketch. The details were astonishing, each line capturing the bioluminescence and texture of the plants. That's incredible. You've got a real talent. Her glow brightened slightly, a sign of appreciation. Thank you. Do humans create art like this? Some do, Ethan replied. I can't draw to save my life, though. I was more into building things when I was younger. Tinkering with machines, that kind of stuff. Lysara tilted her head, intrigued. You've never mentioned that before. Why did you stop? Ethan hesitated, his gaze dropping to his hands. Life got busy, I guess. College, work. I just didn't have time. Lysara studied him for a moment before speaking. Perhaps it's time to make time again. Creation, whether it's art or technology, is how we leave pieces of ourselves behind. Ethan smiled, her words resonating deeply. You might be right. One evening, Ethan and Lysara found themselves on a secluded terrace overlooking the glowing forest. The day had been long, and the quiet of the evening was a welcome reprieve. Do you miss Earth? Lysara asked, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Sometimes, Ethan admitted, but I think I'd miss this more if I left now. Lysara turned to him, her glow flickering. And why is that? Ethan hesitated, searching for the right words. Because of the connections I've made here. Because of you. Her glow brightened, and she met his eyes. You speak with such openness, Ethan. It's rare for a Zentherian to express feelings so freely. Maybe that's why humans and Zentherians have so much to learn from each other, Ethan said softly. The air between them grew charged, and Lysara took a step closer. You surprise me, Ethan Carter, more than anyone I've met. Ethan smiled, his heart racing. And you've made me feel things I didn't think I could feel here. For a long moment they stood there, their worlds colliding in a way that felt as natural as breathing. Lysara reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand, and for the first time, Ethan felt the full intensity of their connection. "Let's see where this takes us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his own voice steady despite the emotion swirling within him. Together. The days following their quiet terrace moment were a blend of anticipation and discovery. Ethan and Lera found themselves drawn to one another in ways neither had anticipated. The connection they shared seemed to transcend their differences, a mutual understanding that grew stronger with each interaction. One evening, Lera invited Ethan to the Lumina Caverns, a sacred Zentherian site said to amplify energy and emotion. The caverns were alive with pulsing lights that mirrored the bioluminescent glow of Zentherians, casting shifting patterns on the crystalline walls. "This place is special to my people," Lera explained as they descended into the cavern. "It's where we go to reflect, to connect with ourselves and others on a deeper level." Ethan glanced around, marveling at the surreal beauty surrounding them. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like this." Lera smiled, her silver glow brightening. "I thought you might appreciate it, but there's another reason I brought you here." She stopped at a small clearing, where the crystalline floor seemed to pulse faintly beneath their feet. Ethan turned to her, his curiosity piqued. "What's the reason?" Lera hesitated, her glow flickering slightly. "Ethan, I've been struggling to find the right words to explain this. Our connection, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced, and for my people, this kind of bond is rare." Ethan's heart raced at her words. He took a step closer, his voice steady. "I feel it too, Lera. I don't know what it means, but I know it's real." She met his gaze, her expression both vulnerable and determined. "This cavern amplifies emotions, Ethan. It allows us to share what we feel, truly feel, with one another. I want you to understand what this means to me." Ethan nodded, his voice soft. "I'm ready." Lera extended her hand, and when Ethan took it, he felt a surge of warmth unlike anything he'd ever known. The cavern around them seemed to respond, the lights intensifying as their emotions flowed freely. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the sensation wash over him, a blend of joy, curiosity, and something deeper. When he opened his eyes, Lera was watching him intently, her glow steady and strong. "Do you see now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled, his own emotions reflected in her luminous gaze. "I do, and I don't want this to end." Their time in the Lumina Caverns marked a turning point. Ethan and Lera's bond deepened in ways neither had anticipated, and their connection became a source of both strength and vulnerability. One evening, as they sat by the cliffs overlooking the glowing forest, Lera spoke of her fears. "My people value connection, Ethan, but they also fear the unknown. What we have, it's not something they'll understand." Ethan reached for her hand, his voice calm and steady. "Then we'll help them understand. Together." Lera's glow brightened, and she leaned into him, her voice soft. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," Ethan admitted, "but it's worth it. You're worth it." For a moment, the only sound was the gentle rustling of the bioluminescent leaves. Then Lera turned to him, her gaze steady. "Ethan, there's something I need to ask you. Would you stay here? Not as a visitor, but as part of this world?" Ethan's breath caught at her words. He hadn't considered the possibility of leaving Earth behind entirely, but as he looked at Lera, he realized that the thought of leaving her was even harder to imagine. "I'd stay," he said finally, his voice firm. "For you, I'd stay." Lera's expression softened, and she leaned closer, her hand resting lightly on his chest. "Then let's make this ours, Ethan. Let's build something that bridges our worlds." He nodded, his heart full. "Together." Their lips met, the kiss gentle at first, then deepening as they allowed themselves to fully embrace the connection they shared. The bioluminescent forest around them seemed to glow brighter, as if reflecting their emotions. When they finally pulled apart, Lera's voice was a whisper. "You're my light, Ethan, my connection to something I never knew I needed." "And you're mine," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "Let's make this a world where we can both belong." As the night enveloped them, Ethan and Lera sat together, their hearts and lives entwined. For the first time, the vast differences between their worlds felt less like a divide and more like an opportunity, a chance to create something entirely new.